Welcome everyone to Outdoors Victoria's Zoom morning tea. My name's Andrew Knight, and we've also got Luke Parker with us today from Outdoors Victoria. So Luke, if you'd like to say good morning to everyone.
Hello everyone, hope you're all well.
Thanks very much, Luke. Thank you, Mr. Chitty, for your use of technology with the thumbs up. So well done there as well. We're obviously amassing a number of more people that are joining us, so we'll bear with them for a little moment longer and then we'll get going. Okay, wonderful. So I'd like to start with a acknowledgement of country. So definitely acknowledge all the lands we meet on here this morning across Victoria, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging across Victoria. So welcome everyone for joining us this morning for the morning tea. Also like to acknowledge the support of Sport and Recreation Victoria, Jobs, Precincts and Regions, Parks Victoria, and we've got Jared Parsons from Parks Victoria with us today. So welcome, Jared. Also the support of DELP and the ET. Also like to welcome a number of board members from Outdoors Victoria. So thanks very much for your volunteer contributions. And we'll get into things again, just letting you know that my name's Andrew Knight from Outdoors Victoria, and we've also got Luke Parker from Outdoors Victoria on the call as well. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, and sadly ones that that not many of us are enjoying much at all. So if there's any particular level of stress that this conversation puts you under, please reach out for help from your loved ones, your colleagues, your friends, or connect with Beyond Blue and some of the other wonderful support services there are out there, because this is a very stressful time for a number of us. So with the stage 3 restrictions, it has seen a number of rather large changes here in Victoria, and what we're going to do throughout the session is everyone's got the chat feature. Hopefully people are roughly familiar with this particular Zoom platform, but down the bottom you've got a chat feature. So both Rob and Alan from Outdoors Victoria, as well as Luke Parker, will be monitoring the chat feature, and we'll be referring across to Luke. And please intervene, Luke, if you need to let me know of any new development on chat. But we'll be regularly referencing chat. So if you've got a particular comment, particular query, please do so on chat at any time, and we'll continue to revisit that throughout the session. If there's particular questions that we can't answer while we're on here, very happy to take that offline, and we obviously can see who's asking those particular questions, and we can get back to them specifically. When it comes to one of the queries from last time around Anglers Rest, which is one of the Parks Victoria managed assets, and is a national park. There was a question at our last session around around the resourcing of Parks Victoria at that particular site, that's been reduced apparently from around 8 rangers down to 1 ranger and a maintenance person. So we'll definitely be getting back to that person individually. There's just some further inquiries going on Parks Vic. If there's any answer about that while we're on, we'll definitely let everyone know about that particular question from last time. Okay, so I see already there's a couple in chat. So let's just check what's going on there. Luke, do you want to fill us in, please?
It's just Robin and I welcoming everyone to the meeting, and Robin putting in some coronavirus mental wellbeing support service contact numbers.
Thanks very much, Robin and Luke. Yeah, as I mentioned before, if this becomes unsettling for any of you, please reach out to your friends, family, colleagues, or one of those great services to be able to help you out. With the most recent changes, there's obviously been a drastic situation where we were all really looking forward to getting back to at least camps, but with the restrictions around Melbourne and Mitchell, that's obviously been curtailed in that particular area. So working with DET at the moment around, and have been putting this up the flagpole for a little while, around the VCE outdoor and environmental studies students, and there's around about 3,000 of them across Victoria. The ones in the Greater Melbourne and Mitchell Shire are obviously affected, where we've basically got a two-track situation going on with the haves and the have-nots, with what they need to do usually in term 3. And so we are working with DET to see if we can get something constructive going on there, so we can get those students out to at least be doing their outdoor activity parts of their modules. So if anything comes through while we're on the call, I'll let you know. But otherwise, we'll definitely keep you informed through Robin's bulletins that she's putting out when extra information comes to hand, and we need to pass it on to all of you. So please make sure that you're all subscribed to our newsletter. If there's any particular things that come out, they're going to be through the newsletter function, which also we have as the bulletin circular as well. Okay, then we've also got the proposal through to DET as well around, okay, so that would be potentially a first stage back out of the restrictions in around Melbourne and Mitchell. It's then, of course, looking to getting back to what had already been announced by the Premier, to go back to camps across Victoria. And right now, if you're out of that restricted area, there's not only camps that are available for the schools to go on, but also excursions. So any outdoor activity day trips and things like that can also be conducted. So working with DET to basically have a staged approach back out of this as quick as we obviously can. So we'll keep you in the loop on that as soon as we have any further detail. There's also been some good teamwork with the Victoria Tourism Industry Council, as well as the Australian Camps Association, around bringing it to the attention of both the federal government and the state government, and especially when it came to the federal government more immediately, with what may have happened to JobKeeper. Now, JobKeeper's been extended, and I'm sure most of you know a fair bit of detail around that already. But Robin, I might get you to pop up the latest information from the federal government around JobKeeper. But there's been quite a lot of advocacy going through VTIC and then up to ATIC, which is the Australian Tourism Industry Council, and across into Minister Birmingham's office and Prime Minister's office, and then a couple of other related ministers' offices, around ensuring that the hospitality, tourism, and our sector, which is technically part of tourism when it comes to that kind of advocacy, are not left behind. So was at least some okay news that the JobKeeper is going to be extended, and also it would be at this stage through until 28th of March 2021 for all businesses that can demonstrate that amount of loss being 30% if you're under $1 billion, or 15% loss if you're not for profit. There's obviously a two-tier system to understand, and I'm not going to go into great detail now about if you're exceeding 20 hours as an employee versus under that, and also, of course, the small business consideration as well to support the small business owners as well. But that's definitely something that we'll get Robin to put up on the chat feature, so you can just double check that you've got all your facts down around that. But the other bit of work with VTech and Australian Camps Association is around addressing this with the state government, and VTech's identified from their perspective there's three main areas of small business that have not received maybe the same level of love as some of the others across the section. I mean, with accommodation providers, they've received a small amount of relief through a $40 million accommodation fund, and with work done there with Australian Camps Association and VTech, that was there was a small allowance and the inclusion of camps in there. But when it comes to other such support, there's really the outdoor activity providers, the mainstream tourism tour operators, and also the small business organisers that have maybe not received what they maybe should when it comes to support. So we'll keep you in the loop on that level of advocacy through to the state government and Business Victoria there. I've had direct chats with Business Victoria recently around that as well, to highlight the need for extra support in this area. Luke, have you got anything else to add on that front around any of that, or from any of the participants?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things. So Robin's been putting in some links into the chat just regarding the JobKeeper payment, the integrity of the JobKeeper payment, a whole bunch of links from the Treasury. So if you sort of want to know a little bit more, they could be some links that are worth looking into. Also, there's been an update that's come out from the DET. So I'll just read that out if that is okay, Andrew.
Thank you.
So it's just an update to the operations guide, and I'll put it in chat as well. So an updated operations guide will be available by the end of this week. The guide will be updated to include the latest directions on face coverings and masks, and will provide advice on managing extended absences for students. This update will also clarify that Year 10s should be on site for VCE and VCAL classes, but that their Year 10 program should be undertaken remotely. This will generally be from home. Where it is not practical for students to return home, they should be provided with a supervised space in the school to participate in remote learning. So just a little update, but good news in terms of that there'll be an updated operations guide coming hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours, which will hopefully provide us that little bit more of information regarding those VCE students and some of those aspects that we still have a couple of questions on camps and excursions. Other than that, just looking through the rest of the chat, that seems to be most things so far. As more questions pop up, we'll be sure to answer them.
Thanks, Luke. One more piece around that's also come up this morning is little information from Fair Work and related to the JobKeeper payment. It only affects employers and employees that are connected to the national system. So if you're a national system employer, from Fair Work's perspective, when it comes to JobKeeper payment changes to the Fair Work Act overview, and they are that the government has amended the Fair Work Act to enable employers who are entitled to receive JobKeeper payment to temporarily vary working arrangements for eligible employees in order to keep people employed. The amendments to the Fair Work Act will only apply to the national system employers who receive JobKeeper payments and can only be used for employees to whom these payments relate. There are strong protections for employees for employer misuse of these provisions. These amendments will cease entirely on the 28th of September 2020. So just another small update for a couple of our organisations joining us today. I mentioned before that that Jared Parsons was going to be joining us from Parks Victoria. Now, Luke, I don't know whether you've been able to find whether Jared's there and whether we can have him have a chat with us.
Yeah, he's all unmuted.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jared. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just really quickly, coronavirus has obviously had an impact on everybody, and it's been pretty full on. And Parks Victoria certainly hasn't been, I guess, not affected by coronavirus in any shape or form. We've had a pretty huge impact across the state on a whole series of levels. And just as an example, like we'd normally have about 4,000 visitors a day at the 12 Apostles, but that's actually down to 100 at the moment, 100 people per day, which is it just gives you an indication of what's happening across the state. And we've had park closures, and there's still a few that are closed at the moment due to physical distancing restrictions. So places like Thousand Steps and Buchan Caves, we've got a few challenges with those kind of sites. With just large crowds or confined spaces. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff which is still going on, and just trying to keep up with the whole situation as it's evolved has been pretty full on for the whole Parks Victoria team, and obviously working with people like your good selves to provide access where we can, and how we sort of work through some of the challenges that we're sort of facing with that. I guess one of the positive things that's come out of it for Parks Victoria is that, with such a drop of visitation, it's given us a bit of time to actually go and I guess hit some tasks that we've been wanting to do that we haven't been able to get, either time or, with so many visitors coming to our parks across the state, we can sometimes struggle to get on top of a few things. So we've been able to knock off a few maintenance projects and things like that have just allowed us to get on the front foot with a few things. And so again, with the 12 Apostles, we were actually able to upgrade a few trails down that way, and improve some of the fencing and things like that. And there's initiatives like that happening across the state, which have been really positive in the midst of all the coronavirus mess that's going on. There's a few things happening behind the scenes that you probably won't see, and one of those is we've actually got a digital content program that's happening, and I guess in development at the moment, with a whole series of different things that are going on online. And so, for example, we actually had our Junior Ranger program. We had to adapt that because we physically couldn't do it in the parks. So our winter school holidays program went online this year. And a lot of great work went into that, and getting activities and things that the kids could actually do. And there's a whole stack of resources on the Junior Ranger website there that you can access. But it was great to sort of see that program still continue, even though we had some pretty challenging circumstances to operate within. Coming soon, we have, there'll be a digital program, which we're calling at the moment, and this is a working title, it's not the final, but it'll be a Go with an LTO. So it's essentially, we're creating some videos and some digital content that'll actually focus on promoting park visitors actually using a licensed tour operator and the benefits of doing that. And so part of that project will be updating the website, and particularly around the listing of the licensed tour operators to make it a bit more user-friendly and help people sort of connect with the type of visitor experiences they're looking for, and hopefully get a few more people through the doors of our licensed tour operators. There's a few ranger-led virtual tours that are coming. There'll be one at Yarra Bend, which will take you through the Flying Foxes, and also there'll be hopefully one at Serendip Sanctuary coming soon. We're looking at a series of Meet the Ranger videos, and so that'll be almost a behind the scenes look at what happens in the day of life of a ranger. You may have noticed there's been an online series called Insights into Nature, which we've been running. It's essentially a webinar which has been running for a couple of weeks now, and I think there's a couple more to come. So keep an eye out just for those coming up. And yeah, there's been quite a bit happening also in the bushfire recovery space. So as you're all aware, we had probably the most significant bushfire we've had in at least a decade. We had something like 1.5 million hectares of fire burn throughout our parks, which is just huge. It's a massive amount of land. There's something like $50 million worth of impact just on our built assets, and that's just massive. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that, and obviously there's a huge impact on biodiversity and the way that parks operate naturally in that sort of nature kind of environmental space. And obviously there's been a huge impact with tourism, which is again being compounded by following bushfires with a pandemic. So that's been a huge thing. Again, this is a space where there's probably a lot happening behind the scenes that you might not actually get to see. But there's a lot of work going on. We've been doing things like treating tree hazard, making sure that if someone does come back into the park at some point, that they're not going to get hit with a tree falling over. Looking at decontamination works, like we've had, some of the facilities that got burnt down had asbestos roofing, and so trying to get rid of some of those things and clean them up, and just getting the sites back into some kind of condition that we can actually go back in there and rebuild things. And just getting rid of some of the burnt infrastructure, cleaning it all up, removing it all, and doing that safely in a way that we can provide those facilities again at some point. There's been huge work done on cultural heritage compliance in that space, and there's a lot of conversations going on with traditional owners, and especially at places like Bucket Caves. We've got a grant or funding to do a joint management plan there, so we'll actually be working with traditional owners on what the future of that whole precinct looks like, and how we can sort of work together more, and make sure that the cultural heritage sort of side of things is better profiled in those situations. And then obviously at the moment there's a lot of statutory planning in place, or in progress I should say, to sort of get things back into place, so that we can sort of open up especially places like the campsites and visitor facilities in a way that is better than it was before, and that we sort of rebuild in a way that is much more practical and hopefully user friendly. So the key priorities at the moment are really getting the assets rebuilt and reopened, and places like Croajingala, we are planning to have some kind of infrastructure in place for September, hopefully. Then we're looking at some temporary camping facilities for Cape Conarin, and then looking at some long-term planning for Cape Conarin, and especially in terms of rebuilding infrastructure there. And we're doing a bit of a planning blitz at the moment, or preparing for a blitz at the moment in northeast Victoria, where the fires have gone through there to, I guess, do a lot of the cleanup works that are required in that space. And so, yeah, there's probably quite a few other things going on that I could tell you about, but one that might be of interest is the Grampians Peaks Trail. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes at the moment to get that in place for the end of this year. So hopefully we'll have some news, especially for the licensed tour operators, with some roofed accommodation options there that licensed tour operators will have access to. But in the meantime, we've got a whole stack of trails going in. There's a few bridges that have now been built, and there's just, a lot of progress has been going on, which is fantastic. And we'll definitely keep you updated on those things as we get more news.
Thanks, Jared. And there's probably a couple of questions are going to come your way as well. So I invite anyone on chat. That'll be wonderful. Just while we wait for them to come through, Jared, around the Grampians Peaks Trail, there's been some representations from us and others around, and queries around group accommodation. So for your school groups and things like that along the trail. Have you got any insight on that?
Not on the specific details of it. Yeah, I might have to get back to you on that one.
Yep, no, that's fine. And then the only other piece that I got from a stakeholder this morning just before the meeting, so it's a short notice question, was just around the Parks Victoria website has a piece on there. So the easiest way usually is to just type into your search engine licensed tour operators. And when you click on that top link from that search, you then get a whole list of the licensed tour operators by location. So Albert Park being one of your assets. There's a number of balloon organisations in there. There's Bindaree, et cetera, and it'll list their particular offer. So it's paddling or sailing or ballooning or whatever else. There's been a query that hasn't been updated for a little while. So just wanting to see if you could give us a bit of an update on that, because that's rather handy for insurers and school groups and clients to check in with to see who's legitimate to operate in those areas. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's like, to be honest, that section's quite clunky at the moment. We're not particularly happy with it in its current state or form. We are, one of the things that actually my team are working on at the moment is that licensed tour operator video sort of based campaign, which we're currently trying to source footage for, which is sort of happening as we speak. One of the, I guess, initiatives as part of that is we'll actually create like a page that has, I guess, for want of a better term, like tiles that sort of talk about what all the different activities are. And so from that, when you get into that page, it'll be a bit more user-friendly experience. So if you want to go canoeing or kayaking, there'll be a canoeing and kayaking image that you can click on, and it'll actually bring up that list of those operators that are licensed for those in different areas. And we're hoping to do also by a park kind of thing. So if you're going to the Grampians and you want to do an activity there, but you don't know what activities there are, in theory, you'll be able to go and click on the Grampians and it'll bring up all the different types of things you can do. So we are going to definitely do some improvements on that. I'm hoping if all goes to plan, that'll be ready for spring. But yeah, it's all part of the, I guess, our digital kind of content improvements and upgrades that we're trying to work on. And particularly, I think for me, you know, I'm really keen knowing that, you know, coronavirus has had such a massive impact on all our licensed tour operators across the state. And, you know, I think it's something that we want to do just so that we can help push some of the visitors through licensed tour operators a bit more, and hopefully get some more business out there to, you know, get some more money flowing out to our licensed tour operators.
Great. And when you mentioned campaign, is there any sort of public facing piece of that, or is it more that there's just going to be a whole lot of accessibility on the website and maybe some social media work and things like that?
So the website's almost a consequence of that. So we've got, there'll be a series, I think it's 6 videos. They'll be fairly short, kind of almost like an advertisement sort of style, go with an LTO type thing. And so we'll definitely pump those out through our social media. And I'm just looking at the moment where, you know, whether we can do some social media advertising or things like that to support it and push it out. And we'll also provide those videos to the regional tourism boards and Visit Victoria and a few other places that might be able to sort of share them and spread them around as well. And particularly looking at, you know, when we are sort of able to get back into that international space, again, you know, to be able to sort of use those when we're talking with international travel agents and all those kind of places. So it's, I think we're trying to create like a tool that we can use to really push the value of using a licensed tour operator and point people back to that page where they can go back and find, hopefully find them pretty easily.
Thanks, Jared, because, you know, we've sort of been discussing things recently at OV around really continuing to get out into the public face around the importance of everyone getting into the outdoors, the importance of outdoor environmental studies at VCE, and getting the students out and active right across the student population, and supporting the outdoor activity providers and camp operators. So I think that could be quite a decent synergy with what you're looking to do, because it sounds like it's relatively imminent. Yeah.
So it's the video development's in progress now. It's only just started a couple of weeks ago. It'll take us a few months to get that all through, but the aim at the moment is to have everything ready to go in September, October. So we'll definitely, and it is dependent a little bit on coronavirus, and, you know, we sort of don't want to put it out too early when nobody can get out. So that's a bit of a challenge, but we'll work around that and make it sort of work as best we can.
Okay, Jared. No, thank you. I'll keep close with you on that. Thank you. Thanks for being on today too. It's really great to have someone from PV, because it's very important to all the people on the call. Luke, I might pass to you to see if you can get us through a number of those queries and things for Jared on the chat.
Yep, so we've had a few sort of comments back and forth on the chat, which is really good. So in terms of questions we've got, so Seamus has sent you an email, Andrew, just in regards to an update on Cape Conran that you might like to share. So in case you haven't seen that email, you should hopefully have got one there.
Thank you.
Just a comment from David Chitty just saying, just ensuring that with those sort of updated websites, trying to have all the operators listed. And I know that's a complex difficulty, but just trying to ensure from David's perspective that we have all those listed. But I'm sure that's on the top of that list when you're developing those, I'm sure.
And just to add to that too, like it's really important that the licensed operators go into Park Connect to make sure their details are all up to date as well, because one of the things that they might disappear, you know, if the system doesn't actually have the right website address in there, you know, that could actually drop them out of the list. So, you know, if you are a licensed operator, make sure your details are all up to date in Park Connect so that when we do go out, you know, your best website options there and your phone numbers and all that are all listed so that we don't have gaps everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Other than that, we've had Nairi, who's happy to connect with you. Jared, she has a lot of videos that may potentially help, so I can connect you two together to see if there's any synergies that can be in that aspect.
That would be fantastic. We're very much in the phase of sourcing video content at the moment, and one of the challenges with coronavirus has been that we can't actually get out and film because we're mostly based in Melbourne with all the team that are looking after it at least. So thankfully the video production company we've got looking after that isn't in Melbourne. So, but yeah, if there's any footage out there that people can help us with, definitely send it through, and we'll definitely try and incorporate that if we can.
Perfect, thank you. And the only other question was also from Park Fix with James. Thanks for joining us today, James. Just regarding the fact that the PB website is undergoing a large redesign, and that the web team are sort of very aware of the complexities and sort of shortfalls of that website, and they've taken that all on board. So hopefully in the coming future, we'll see that redesigned website as well.
Yeah, and the other thing to add to that too is that like the website, it's I guess a staged redevelopment from our old website, which was probably a previous generation of the internet, so to speak. But I think the thing at the moment with our website is that we're in the first few stages of that content being put in there, and there's still a few more stages to go. And at the moment there's probably a few parks missing that you may be looking for, and that's content that's coming as well. So we've got a lot of staff out on the ground who are putting information into the back of this website, which will come up at some point in the not too distant future. So there's a lot of that kind of information coming as well that isn't there right now. So it's definitely still a work in progress, and lots of improvements coming. So hopefully it'll be much better.
Fantastic. That's very exciting. And then the only other thing, Andrew, is Dave has a question. I think he's unmuted now. So go for it, Dave.
I just referenced the current website. I still think we need to work to get all the operators and their activities listed correctly. One of the things too, if we haven't got our activities and locations listed, we haven't actually applied for, say, me to run in the Alpine National Park ski tours, and I run a ski tour there and I have an accident, I'm probably not going to be covered by insurance. And that falls back on Parks Victoria as well, to make sure that parks really need to make sure that everyone is licensed location and activity for what they're running. And
so
to do the same thing.
So if you're on your license, if you don't have a particular park listed and you want to operate there, you actually need to let Parks Victoria know so that we can adjust your license. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to flick us an email and we'll get that added to your license. It's not too difficult to do, but yeah.
I've been going through that, but I'm just aware that a lot of my peers probably aren't aware of that, and it could be something we might need to send out, because the other thing I think we as operators need to know is how many people are we allowed to take out at the moment. We had the 10+1 ages ago, and the Parks Victoria website's a little bit confusing. It says you're going to have 20 for sport and recreation, and then 10 for bushwalking, 10 for something else. I think all activities are probably intended to be 10, but that's not clear, and I know some people are fudging that again, and that puts a huge risk on us.
And it's been a huge challenge. I think with coronavirus, it's evolved so quickly, and I think even just because we get direction from the state government on what that looks like, and just trying to keep up with that has been, I mean, it changes every 5 minutes, it feels like sometimes. Probably the best source of information is the coronavirus website that the state government runs, because they've got a very detailed kind of outline of all those things. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some confusing kind of, I guess, numbers and sort of figures that are in that information, which is, yeah, I think that the best thing we can do is sort of suggest that, you know, have a read through and make the best judgment you can, and be conservative. Like it is, you know, it's not a light decision to make. It's a serious pandemic. It's not something that, you know, we'd normally sort of have to face, and it's better to be conservative with these things, I think, rather than you know, sort of take extra risks just for the sake of it. So yeah, if I can encourage you to you know, be conservative and make sure you check the information as often as you can, because it does change a little bit, and just, yeah, hopefully if you get stuck, give us a call and we can try and work it out. And
the last one, I guess, is there's going to be a growth in unlicensed operators, as there always is in these types of yeah, when we have a bit of a bloody disaster, it's happened before, and I mean, I suppose some sort of and that affects the licensed operators' ability to run and be financial and be credible. Yeah. So that's something if there's any way the peak bodies and the LTOs and other stakeholders can help parks, I mean, not that we necessarily want to dob people in, but we also know that if we do put something in, how it's being handled. I'm not quite sure whether parks do that these days or DELP. There's a lot of not clarity about that yet.
So there's a bit of, there's a few things in that. One, I mean, it's a constant challenge, even without pandemics and other issues. You know, it's almost a never-ending problem in some ways. But I think one of the best things we can do is to, you know, if you do see somebody that you're not sure about, definitely let us know. A quick email to the licensed tour operator email address, with some details. Like, we need to know, you know, times, whether there was vehicles there, registration numbers, anything like that you can give us is really helpful. We then report that through to DELP, and they have compliance teams that do look at that, and we also have our own compliance that we do as well. So sometimes it's a case of, you know, people will contact them and they just didn't know they needed to be a licensed tour operator, which still baffles me a little bit, but you know, generally that phone call can help that situation, and then they become licensed. But if they don't, at least we've got it on record, and when we can sort of catch them in the act, so to speak, we're able to sort of follow that through. So yeah, definitely let us know, and yeah, we'll keep sort of working on that, because it is a constant, I guess, irritation for no doubt for you guys, but also for us as well.
Perhaps a bit of an email explaining some of that out to the stakeholders and LTOs would be.
Yeah.
Would be actually at the moment. Yeah.
It's actually scheduled for our next e-newsletter to come out with the instructions, so we'll definitely be doing that.
And I think also, yeah, thanks, David, and thanks for raising that. And I think also, with this campaign that's coming up, Jared, I think that's where VTIC, ACA, us will be present in the media to try to promote that for all kinds of good reasons. And that's where we can go, well, you know, and part of this is that we're promoting the legitimate licensed tour operators.
That's right. And that's really some of the thought process that went behind that actually being created. We do want to, you know, it's easy to sort of, you know, say that, you know, we need to fix the ones that don't cooperate. But I think there's a general lack of awareness just amongst the public that there are licensed tour operators, and that's actually the better way to go, because they're insured, they're safer, they've got the head knowledge, they know the local parks, they know the hidden secrets, so to speak. So we want to get those kind of messages out, so that, you know, we're directing people to the right operators rather than just a random hit and miss kind of approach. So yeah, it's definitely something we're conscious of, and we're definitely working on.
I might add that we all need to be conscious as an industry, parks and insurers, of what's happening in Dreamworld. And while we're trying to do the right thing, I think we could do better, because we could end up in a Dreamworld situation as an outdoor industry in this state if we weren't careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some more conversations that we all need to have as a community around that insurance piece, David. That's for sure. And we'll we'll obviously try to negotiate these rough orders at the moment, and then get to that quite swiftly afterwards. I think if anyone, it looks like we've finished the queries from Jared, and sorry, on the chat. So thank you, Jared, very, very much for joining us today. Appreciate it, and would love to have you involved in future chats. It's much appreciated, yeah, having you here. So thank you. Is there anything else that's come up, Jared, at your end, that's jogged your memory while we've been hounding you with questions?
There's quite a lot of things I could talk about, but I might leave it for now.
No worries, Jared. Well, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. The other piece that I'd love to get some ideas in chat around is when it comes with the teamwork and chats we're doing with VTIC and ACA into government. If there are particular ideas that you think are innovative that we could propose to, your Business Victorias, other parts of department jobs, precincts and regions to help support our sector, or at a federal level, please pop anything at all in chat, because I'd really appreciate your input around some of the innovative ideas that you might have as to how government can support. And, of course, financially is the main one, but are there other particular items that, David Chitty's brought one up today around potential further enforcement of non-LTOs operating. And, if they're invited politely by PV and then they continue to operate without a permit, what are the ramifications around that type of thing? But would love to get any ideas that any of you have around that advocacy that I can take to those other peak bodies as we work in teamwork with them into the state and federal governments. Also at a national level, there's the Outdoor Council of Australia, which is the outdoors peaks that are on that, plus Scouts Australia, plus Christian Venues Association and Australian Camps Association. So that's another vehicle that we can lend support to any advocacy efforts at the federal government level. But Luke, I might just see, it'll take some time, I think, for some people to type any of those ideas in, but of course you're welcome to contact me afterwards as well on ceo@outdoorsvictoria.org.au. But Luke?
So the only other things that have been sort of coming up in chat since David's question, so just briefly on the Parks Vic aspect, so just some sort of broader points around schools needing permits and something that we can potentially just add to the list next time we're sort of looking into things. And then also a really good comment there from Nairi. Sorry if I apologise if I said your name incorrectly. I'm a school teacher and sometimes my names are terrible. But just around one of the camps that are delivering cooked meals to individuals to get some finance in, so you can order online. So just another really good idea of schools and camps that are being sort of really forward thinking in terms of how to sort of get through this very difficult time. Other than that, that's most of the questions or all the questions covered up to this point.
Thanks, Luke, very much. And as I encourage people to connect with me directly on that front. There's also been a idea launch that's hopefully going to help us out as we come out the other side of this. And it's with seek.com. So Seek's obviously a recruitment advertising site, and Outdoor Council of Australia have been working with Seek as well as a number of other large job advertisers, and Seek came out on top. And what happens there is if you provide to any of the outdoors peaks across Australia or the Australian Camps Association, they'll be able to feed that Seek ID, which is not particularly anything precious. It's not like it's a password or anything like that at all. But if you can pass it on to us, we can then feed that through to Seek, and they will then attach that to any of the jobs that you're putting forward, so that they'll also fall into a microsite of Seek. And so over time, as hopefully the numbers will build into the future if advertising on Seek, there'll be not only the public that will all be able to get on Seek because it's the largest one, but also our particular sector will be able to log in, and the peaks will provide that information as it comes to hand, to be able to then look specifically on a microsite just for jobs in this particular part of the sector around Australia. So please forward your Seek ID to me at ceo@outlawsvictoria.org.au, and I can then get that attached to any of the jobs that you advertise in the future. So I know it's a bit of a longer term thing, but that's just something that we wanted to help build the services that are available to all of the people that work in our sector, but also encourage everyone, if they are going to be advertising jobs in the future, to consider Seek, because then we're obviously getting that out amongst the wider community as to what we do. If the numbers grow to sort of anticipated levels of advertising that we used to have, they'll then be able to create a new category in Seek that may be something like outdoor activity providers and camps, or the like, so that when people start searching through the categories, we actually pop up in lights for the first time ever. So please support us with your Seek IDs if you're using Seek, or in the future if you do use Seek, so that we can continue to build that number of ads on there, so that they can provide us with their own category. So just an FYI there. Luke, anything else at this stage?
Just a couple of little notes from Dave that I've taken down for some further thought outside the meeting, but other than that, most of the aspects at the moment are covered.
Yeah, great, thank you. If anyone else has got any general questions now, very happy to take any of those on chat. And if anyone did want to speak up, just let us know on chat, and we'll get you on again via Luke. So thanks very much for your queries today. Okay.
Just one quick question. Has anyone accessed any of the regional tourism accommodation support program? It was a $5,000 grant. Just had a couple of questions from people asking if anyone has accessed that, or if they've had any issues or problems at sort of trying to get any of that $5,000 funding.
Thanks, Luke. That was from memory through a announcement that Visitors Victoria made about a week ago, probably maybe 10 days ago. And we featured that in our last newsletter. So if anyone needs to have a memory jogger on what was available in that suite of support, dial back in. If you just type in Outdoors Victoria July news, it'll come up in your inbox.
And that's all the questions.
Great. Well, fantastic to have been with you today. We'll definitely, a couple of action items there, that if anyone does have any high quality footage to get it across to Jared. Jared, are you the best person at PV to email or start to have a conversation around that with?
Yeah, either myself or Lisa McKenzie. Probably the easiest would be to send it through to tourism@parks.vic.gov.au.
So tourism
at parks.vic.gov.au. But yeah, happy people to contact me directly if they want to do that. That's not a problem at all.
Thanks for that, Jared. So that's one particular action item for some of us. We've potentially got some high quality footage too, Jared, that you might be able to mesh in there.
And
We've just
Yeah.
got one final question from David as well. He just wants to make one last comment.
Go for it, David.
I operate into New South Wales as well, and we recently became a COVID-safe business in New South Wales. Their government has a COVID-safe business system. You've got to do a bit of planning and that. It could be something that the national outdoors, through the OCA, if we could come with a COVID-safe outdoors, I've got a circle and a tick and I can say I'm COVID safe, and that looks as good in Victoria as it does anywhere else. So something like that, not only for this, but it could also flow on to further activity safe accreditations and other types of things that we might need to meet insurance in the future. But is someone said Victoria has one. I haven't seen a Victorian COVID safe logo. But anyway, it's worth looking at there. Mm-hmm.
For sure. So I'll further explore that, David, and we'll probably pop it in the next bulletin around information around that. There's also a board meeting for OCA next week. So I'll just query what are the thoughts around that and that particular idea, David. So thank you.
Yeah, because you get a logo and you also get a poster and various other things that you're legally allowed to use. And that's probably the critical thing. I've done lots of other COVID safe things, but this one is something that you could stick on your website, as I've got, and your Facebook page and things.
Yeah, for sure. I'll also just check in too with VTIC and potentially Business Vic around that as well, because it could be something that's, there's a DHHS piece that Nairi's talking about, so thanks for letting us know about that. I'm guessing it's DHHS. But as you say, some kind of branding and everything else around that as well for websites and particular physical sites could be a really good idea. So thanks for that one, David. Appreciate it.
Another question popped up, Andrew, just a quick one. Just regarding anyone that's currently in a camp, and just wondering, have you had many camps come in so far, and how have you sort of felt that whole aspect to have gone with sort of the COVID safe camping practices and hosting schools? I know that with a lot of those sort of Melbourne and Mitchell Shire schools, they've only just come back this week. But for the regional schools, has anyone hosted any of those schools yet, and how have you found that so far?
And maybe if you want to speak up, and Luke can let you in to have a chat to everyone. So some of the other action items out of this is that there's a whole lot of news around Parks Victoria doing a LTO campaign coming up in spring. So that's really fantastic, and we'll keep everyone abreast of that and make sure that there's some media coverage for that too, Jared. So I'll keep you in the loop on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. Luke, any feedback on camps in regional?
No, not at this stage. Everyone must be mainly dealing with Melbourne camps, or haven't sort of got a whole lot of sort of background at this stage, which is completely fine. There's a couple of people saying they've got sort of school bookings into the future, but not at this stage have they got any. So that might be a good point to bring up in our next meeting to see how people have that transition. Hopefully by then we've had some more schools accessing some of our camps and activity providers.
Thanks, Luke. And of course, there's some updates coming from DET later this week, so we'll make sure everyone is aware of those. I think we just got something through then, Luke.
Yeah, just from Adam Scanlon. So just teaching online from regional Gippsland into a Melbourne school that has multiple campuses. So the complexities and difficulties of being multi-campus and big Melbourne schools and going through those very difficult circumstances. And I suppose from my perspective, it's really important that we try and look after as much as we can a lot of these schools, because especially in sort of those Melbourne and Mitchell Shires, we want to really support them as much as we can, because we don't want outdoor-ers to fall off the list because at the moment we're not necessarily being utilised as much as we currently are. And then we've just also got a question from Seamus. You should be able to unmute Seamus and ask a question. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, no, it's just probably for you, Luke. There seems to be a few more schools in Gippsland starting, or I work out East Gippsland,
Yep.
and I have a fair bit to do with a lot of the schools there. There seems to be the programs are looking to get going again in this term with schools. So I know the schools talking to LTOs about hiring sea kayaks. There's been lots of discussion going around about Alpine programs. So, and how the closure of the Hotham and Falls Ski Patrol medical services are affecting where programs are going to head into the Alps. And I've received a couple of phone calls about like potentially coming down to the Gippsland Lakes, probably which Adam doesn't want to hear because he can't get out. But so I think there is going to be some movement in Gippsland in programs. So that's all I just wanted to share.
No, that's great. And we'll, if we can help in any way in facilitating those conversations, please let us know, and we can do our best to find out those sort of intricate details that are needed for those camps to occur if it's sort of relying on further or updated advice.
Yeah, and I've encouraged. I think a couple might have rung you anyway, Andrew. I think Dave's had a conversation with you.
Yeah, most certainly, yes. Yeah, no,
Yep.
Thank you. And I think also just around Alpine very quickly, there's been some work, and we can't sort of mention anyone yet. You'll need a few permissions yet before I can get to it, but around Alpine Safety and high quality weather forecasting and everything else around ice levels, exposure levels, and avalanche risks. So there'll be some really good news announced over the next number of weeks from a couple of organisations, which will help out a whole lot of us that are going to be working in the backcountry on camps and things like that. So we'll keep everyone abreast of that when we're going to formally announce that. Luke, anything else at this stage?
No, that's all. That's all the questions that have come through the chat.
Fantastic. Well, we might finish up now, but thanks very much. There's been a number of points raised and quite a few answers received, which is fantastic. And please, continue to contact me if you need to chat with me at any time. Just flick us an email at ceo@outdoorsvictoria.org.au, and I'll book in a chat and we can work through anything that you need any assistance from us on. So thanks very much for today. Love it all. See you, and keep punching, as Jeff Fennick used to say, and we'll look forward to connecting with you again on another Zoom morning tea. Thanks so much for your help, Luke, and also for some of the board members and Robin in the background. And lovely to have some great input from Jared and James, Seamus, and a whole lot of questions. So thanks very much, everyone. I see that's coming through on the chat as well now. Anything else for you, Luke, to add?
In regards to the next meeting, we'll send out an alert on our newsletter and also on our social media pages. We'll have a look at when we've got updated advice and when we've got some more information that we feel can benefit everyone. But we'll let everyone know well in advance of when our next meeting will be.
Okay, thanks very much. It's been fantastic to have you all with us today, and I'm sending all our extra positive energy your way. So thanks very much for today.
Thank you, everyone.
All the best.